All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. The Eastern Conference Finals are set to begin tomorrow night in the NBA playoffs. Now, the Boston Celtics were expected to get here, but the same could not be said for the upstart Indiana Pacers, who are making their first trip to the conference finals since 2014. I'll tell you like this plain and simply has the makings of being a very fun series. Why? Because you're talking about the top two teams in points per game during the regular season in the NBA. You're talking about two teams that can get up and down the floor on you. And it would not surprise me, honestly, to see the loser of each game in this series score at least 110 points. That's how talented the both of these clubs are on offense. You think about what the Celtics give you; they're so deep, and it starts with the talent at the wings with Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Bringing in a guy like Drew Holiday, the veteran point guard who helped the Milwaukee Bucks win an NBA championship back in 2021. This is big. And I said it when it happened. I was, and it still is big for the Boston Celtics. You've got veterans like Al Horford and Derek White. And then at some point during this series, the Celtics are expected to get Kristaps Porzingis back. And that's going to be big because now it pushes Al Horford back to the bench. It strengthens the depth on your bench. And then on top of that, you got a guy in Porzingis who can really stretch the floor, okay? And that is a difference maker for the Celtics as well as the opponents that they have to try to stop them. But you look at this Pacers team, and like I said before, these guys can get up and down the floor. I know that they're called the Indiana Pacers, based off of something that the city of Indianapolis is famous for, which is auto racing, and of course the Indy 500, which will take place this Sunday. But nonetheless, the way that the Pacers play, they play like they're in Indy cars because they're fast. They get up and down the court, and they make life hell on opposing defenses. Just ask the New York Knicks and Milwaukee Bucks about that in this postseason. It starts and ends with Tyrese Haliburton, and of course, we saw him, yesterday in Game 7 at the Garden against the New York Knicks, and he simply could not miss. But it's not about the scoring ability for Halliburton. For me, it's about the way that he dishes. It's the way that he gets everybody involved on this offense. You look at things, okay? You've got Pascal Siakam, and I was one of those who thought this was a good move for Indiana prior to the trade deadline. Didn't think it was going to result in them getting to the conference finals, but nonetheless, getting Pascal Siakam in was big. You have Miles Turner, and then the other thing for me when I think about the Indiana Pacers, you look at what you have gotten not only throughout the regular season, but also here in the postseason off of your bench from both Obi Toppin and TJ McConnell. Both of those guys combined are like averaging a combined nearly 22 points per game during this postseason run for the Indiana Pacers. That's big right there. Okay, because you factor two guys in off of your bench combining to get nearly 22 points per game. That means that they put stress on the opposing defenses. More importantly, they put stress on those second units. And then a guy like TJ McConnell, a veteran point guard, okay, not a guy at the point guard position because of his height, a legit point guard, a legit ball handler, a legit leader on the court. It's been big for Indiana so far in this run, and he's going to be big if they're going to go out there and knock off the Boston Celtics. Now, both of these teams have something in common as far as Indiana and Boston go. I talked about their ability to get up and down the floor, but not only that, neither one of them has really faced a healthy team so far in these playoffs. You think about it, Celtics took care of the Miami Heat in 5 games, and then they took care of the Cleveland Cavaliers in 5 games, while the Pacers faced the Milwaukee Bucks without Giannis and without Damian Lillard for a couple of games, and then of course the litany of injuries that faced the New York Knicks before and during this series against Indiana. So it's going to be very interesting to see which one of these clubs comes out on top. You look at the coaching advantage. To me, it clearly sits with Indiana and Rick Carlisle. You're talking about a veteran head coach who has a championship on his resume, of course, in 2011 with the Dallas Mavericks. This is year number 2 for Joe Mazzulla. I said it last year at some point, his inexperience was going to show up, and it showed up in Boston's Eastern Conference Finals loss to the Miami Heat. I'll tell you like this: Boston has been so close in recent years. Will this be the year that they get over that hump? 2017, they got to the conference finals. 2018, they got to the conference finals. 2020, they got to the Eastern Conference Finals. 2022, they lost in the NBA Finals. And last year, of course, they got to the Eastern Conference Finals once more. They've been knocking on the door. Will this be the year that the Boston Celtics are going to be able to tear down the door? We've got to wait and see. Coaching wise, like I said, I give the edge to the Boston Celtics, to the Indiana Pacers with Rick Carlisle. Depth as a team, I give it to the Boston Celtics as well as the finishers. But it's one of those, I think at this point, you just throw a lot of things out of the window. Again, I cannot harp on this enough. I think this is going to be a fantastic series. And one thing that I will say about the Boston Celtics, we saw them have some lulls in both round one against Miami and round number two against Cleveland. Both of those series really should have been sweeps. Okay, but Boston, they take their foot off of the gas too often and they lose games too often that you sit back and you're like, how did you let that happen? Boston cannot afford to do that with this Indiana team. Okay, Boston needs to be locked in from the opening tip of game number one. I think it's going to be very energetic tomorrow night because I think both teams are going to look to set the tone. Of course, when you think about postseason series, you think about adjustments, and that is why I give the coaching edge naturally to the Indiana Pacers with Rick Carlisle. Again, I can't harp on this enough. I think this is going to be a back and forth series. I think it's going to be a fun series. But when it's all said and done, I'm going to take the Boston Celtics to get past the Indiana Pacers in 6 games. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.